Welcome to this brand new series where we'll be discussing anything and everything you need to know about the world's scariest people. In this first episode, we'd like to introduce you to the Hillside Strangler. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to They Will Kill You. Hit the like button and request any topics you'd like to learn about in the comments section below. Number 9. Who was the Hillside Strangler? The Hillside Strangler was the name initially used for a serial killer who was active in Los Angeles between October 1977 and February 1978. The killer was responsible for at least 10 victims, all of them women, ranging in age from 12 to 28 years old. Many of the bodies were found in the hills surrounding Los Angeles and exhibited signs of strangulation, hence the nickname. The victims had also been sexually abused and tortured before they were murdered. The police eventually discovered that the Hillside Strangler murders was the result of two serial killers working together, cousins Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Buono Jr. They killed in rapid succession and brutal fashion, taunting the police and terrifying residents in the Los Angeles area. Number 8. Early life. Bianchi's mother, who was an alcoholic prostitute, gave him up for adoption a few weeks after he was born. He was a troubled child with many behavioral problems, including being prone to fits of anger. His adoptive mother described him as a compulsive liar and took him to a psychiatrist on several occasions. Bianchi was diagnosed with a passive-aggressive personality disorder. He graduated high school but dropped out of college after the first semester and drifted through several menial jobs. He became a petty thief, stealing valuables and offering them to prostitutes or his girlfriends as a way of gaining their loyalty. Angelo Buono was born in New York to first-generation Italian immigrants. His extensive criminal history included grand theft auto, failure to pay child support, assault, and rape. He would become a type of role model for Bianchi. Number 7. Early criminal career. Following his move to Los Angeles in 1977, Bianchi began living with his older cousin, Angelo Buono Jr. Impressed by Buono's clothes, jewelry, and reported ability to get any woman he wanted. When Bianchi didn't have money, Buono convinced him that they should get some girls to work for them as prostitutes. They forced 2 teenage runaways to prostitute themselves, but the girls eventually managed to get out from under their control and leave the city. As their pimping income had taken a hit, Bianchi and Buono started impersonating police officers to get more teenage girls. They also bought a trick list from a prostitute, Deborah Noble, which supposedly contained the names of men known as clients of prostitutes. In October 1977, the list was delivered to Buono by Noble and her friend, Yolanda Washington, also a prostitute. Washington would become the Hillside Stranglers' first victim. Number 6. Becoming a killer. Bianchi and Buono discovered they'd been deceived about the trick list after Washington mentioned that she'd always worked in a particular area of Sunset Boulevard. They decided to track down Noble but couldn't find her, so they took their revenge on Washington instead. On October the 18th, 1977, a detective from the LA Sheriff's Department found her naked body on a hillside near the Ventura Freeway. Washington was raped before she was strangled, and there were faint marks around her ankles, wrists, and neck, indicating that a rope had been used. There was evidence the body had been cleaned prior to being dumped. Her murder would mark Bianchi and Buono's transition from low-level pimps to feared serial killers. About 2 weeks later, the body of 15-year-old Judith Lynn Miller was found in a neighborhood 12 miles north of downtown LA. Miller was a runaway and a teenage sex worker. It was determined that she'd been killed elsewhere and that her body was dumped in the middle-class residential area. Similar to Washington's case, Miller's body showed ligature marks and signs of sexual abuse. The teenage girl, who only weighed about 90 pounds, had been raped, sodomized, and strangled. The last time she was seen alive, Miller was spotted talking to a man in a 2-ton sedan on Sunset Boulevard. Number 5. Modus operandi. The Hillside Stranglers drove around Los Angeles in Buono's car and using fake badges, convincing girls and women they were undercover police officers. They then ordered them to get in the car, claiming it was an unmarked police vehicle. The victims were taken to Buono's home where they were sexually abused, tortured, and strangled. Aside from strangulation, Bianchi and Buono experimented with other killing methods, including electric shock, carbon monoxide poisoning, and lethal injection. One of their victims' hands had been burned while another was injected with Windex, a hard surface cleaner. Dumping the naked bodies of their victims on hillsides wasn't the only way in which the serial killers taunted the authorities. Bianchi took it one step further. While committing the murders, he applied for a job to join the Los Angeles Police Department. He even went on several police ride-alongs as they were actively looking for the Hillside Strangler. Number 4. Other victims. 5 days after the murder of Judith Miller, the body of Elisa Teresa Castin was found in Glendale on November 6, 1977. Unlike the previous 2 victims, 21-year-old Castin wasn't a drugs user, a runaway, or a prostitute. She worked as a waitress and a professional dancer for the LA Knockers. Bianchi and Buono approached Castin after her shift at the restaurant was over. They pretended to be detectives, handcuffed her, and claimed that they were taking her in for questioning. A week later, the corpses of 2 underage girls were found in a trash heap on a hillside near Dodger Stadium. 12-year-old Dolores Ann Cepeda and 14-year-old Sonia Marie Johnson had been raped and strangled. The last time they were seen alive had been as they were approaching a 2-ton sedan with 2 men inside. After the next victims, Christina Weckler and Jane King, were discovered within 3 days of each other, a task force was put together to catch the serial killer, now known as the Hillside Strangler. By February 17, 1978, the bodies of 3 more women were found. They displayed similar ligature marks, and it was determined that they'd been raped, tortured, and strangled. Number 3. Capture. The beginning of the end for the serial killers came when Bianchi revealed to Buono that he'd been on police ride-alongs and that he was being questioned by the LAPD in connection to the Hillside Strangler case. Buono was enraged and threatened to kill Bianchi if he didn't leave the city. In May 1978, Bianchi moved to Bellingham, Washington. In January 1979, Bianchi was working as a security guard when he lured 2 students from Western Washington University to a house he was guarding. Once they were inside, Bianchi strangled the victims, 22-year-old Karen Mandick and 27-year-old Diane Wilder. However, without Buono, he left a trail of clues behind and was taken in by the police the very next day. A routine background check and a California driver's license was all that it took to connect him to the addresses of 2 victims of the Hillside Strangler. Number 2. Trial and sentencing. Bianchi tried an insanity plea and even convinced several expert psychiatrists that he was suffering from multiple personality disorder. He told them that another personality, named Steve Walker, had been responsible for committing the murders. The investigators brought in their own psychiatrist, a man called Martin Orn, who mentioned to Bianchi that people suffering from the disorder often had more than one alternate personality. That's when he promptly came up with another alias called Billy. Eventually, investigators discovered that Bianchi had used the name Steve Walker from a student whose identity he'd once tried to steal in order to fraudulently practice psychology. Bianchi eventually admitted to faking the disorder and agreed to testify against Buono for leniency. However, he was uncooperative and tried to contradict himself as much as possible, seemingly trying to avoid being the one to bring down his serial killer partner. In the end, it didn't matter. Buono was arrested and Bianchi's testimony became the basis for his conviction. His legal defenders argued that Bianchi was an unreliable witness, and Buono's trial became one of the longest in American legal history. It lasted from 1981 to 1983. He was eventually sentenced to life in prison, where he died of a heart attack in 2002. Bianchi was also sentenced to life imprisonment and will be eligible for parole again in 2025. At Buono's trial, the judge argued in favor of the death penalty and stated ironically, although these 2 defendants utilized almost every form of lethal execution against their victims, the defendants have escaped any form of capital punishment. Number 1. Aftermath. While in prison, Bianchi met a woman named Veronica Compton. She testified at his trial, telling the jury a false, vague tale in a failed attempt to exonerate him. Compton was later convicted and imprisoned for luring and trying to strangle a woman at a motel. She did so in an effort to convince authorities that the Hillside Strangler was still alive. During one of her prison visits, Bianchi had allegedly given her some semen, and she was meant to make it look like a case of rape and murder, in keeping with the Hillside Stranglers' MO. Buono had once been married to a woman named Mary Castillo, with whom he had 5 children. Christopher was one of their grandsons who only in 2005 learned his grandfather's true identity. The discovery proved haunting. In 2007, Christopher shot his grandmother in the head before taking his own life. Thanks for watching. What shocked you the most about the Hillside Stranglers? Let us know in the comments section below.